Hey all, this is Dio here once again. I'm going to just take you through how to set up and properly use the Osu Lazer tournament client. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than my companion video for how to set up the normal Osu tournament client. If you have not watched that video, I recommend you go watch it now. There should be a link to it as I talk about this part of the video. Obviously, the first step for using the Osu Lazer tournament client is to download Osu Lazer. So we are just going to search Osu Lazer here. We're going to go to the GitHub, and we are going to download Osu Lazer. This will give you the latest download, and this will let us eventually set up the Osu Lazer client and the Lazer tournament client, more importantly. While we wait for it to install and actually, get onto the PC, I can talk about what the Osu Lazer tournament client actually is. Really, all it is it's an overlay, a fancy overlay that displays a bunch of information about the teams, the map pool, the tournament bracket, and the current scores for both teams. So it's not actually a client that works independently. You still have to use the old tournament client, which is why I recommended for anybody who had not done so yet to watch my companion video on how to use the normal Osu tournament client. All right, from here, we don't actually need to use the Lazer client at all. While it's very cool, you don't need to do so. See you next time. So I am going to close out of it. We are going to open this up, and we're going to go into our C drive, go into users, my name, app data local, and I'm going to go into Osu Lazer, and see this osu-lazer.exe file right here. What we're going to do is we are going to create a shortcut for this. This is the next step in it. And we're going to move this shortcut out to the desktop. You can see I've already done this because I already used the Lazer client. So you would drag this out onto your desktop or wherever you want your Lazer tournament client to be. This is the shortcut that we use for our Lazer tournament client. From there, we're going to right click and go to properties. And in the shortcut menu of properties, we are going to add the exact text space -- tournament to the end of the target file. It's very important. That space -- tournament at the end of the target is what turns your shortcut from just a normal shortcut which opens Osu Lazer into now a shortcut that opens the Lazer tournament client. From here, you have a couple different things that you need to do to set this up. The first thing and most important thing is to set up an IPC source. You can change the location from here and, look at all of the stable paths. And once you find a path, so for me, it'd be BMT2. That's the tournament that I'm using this for right now. I would select that path and keep it as such. The thing that you need to make sure of when you do select a path, and I'll go to my tournament clients and go to BMT2. This is the companion folder for my regular tournament client that I'm using for this tournament. And I actually have my tournament.cfg right here. Let me move that back in. You need to have these 4 IPC text files: ipc.txt, ipc-channel.txt, ipc-scores.txt, and ipc-state.txt. You can just create a blank notepad file and name them ipc.txt. I mean, you can create a blank notebook file, copy it 3 times, and put 4 blank notebook files in here, and then just name them ipc, ipc-channel, and ipc-scores, and ipc-state. And that's all you need to do. From there, that is, I don't know exactly what it does, but That's a necessary prerequisite to using the Lazer tournament client. I already have it open. I don't know why I clicked that again. From there, you can change your sign-in info here. You can change the rule set here if you're doing, for example, a Tycoke or a Catch or Mania tournament. You can do so there. And then there's this current tournament drop down, which is really, really useful. I'm going to click this open folder button so you can see exactly what's going on here. And I'm just going to widen this window so you can see exactly where everything is here. This OSU folder right here in app data roaming is where all of your data for the Lazer client generally is stored, and this tournaments folder within it is an extremely important thing, because it is where you can put in all of the different files that are associated with the tournament. So for example, with BMT2 here, I have custom flags for the teams. You can name different pictures for the different teams and allow the teams to submit profile pictures, and they will automatically get cropped when you select a match and the two teams show up. Just happen to have a match where there are two teams who have custom profile pictures. Very nice. You have custom mods that show up when you look at the map pool. That is where those mods go. Whether you make these folders lowercase or uppercase doesn't matter. Whether you make these mod icons lowercase or uppercase doesn't matter. All that matters is that the exact text matches here what you put into here. And we'll go over the rest of this shortly. I'll just go down item by item. But I wanted to go over how the folder is set up. Here is the videos folder, and probably the most infamous folder for the Lazer tournament client. These videos, gameplay, ladder, main, map pool, schedule, seeding, showcase, team intro, team win, blue and red, are what are the backbone of the skin that you are using, essentially, is what it is, right? The Lazer tournament client, again, is a skin that makes your overlay look a lot better and displays information that the normal tournament client doesn't have the capability to do. So for example, I've got a schedule put in here. It's incorrect. I got to change it, which is part of the reason I'm doing this video. I figures may as well. You have a bracket that you can look at. This is a round of 16 tournament. Other tournaments, of course, at round of 32 will not show up quite as nicely. You can zoom in to focus in, and that's more helpful while you're actually creating the bracket rather than when you're viewing it like this. I would obviously zoom out just by scrolling in or out. You can do that. The team intro, the seeding, the map pool page, the gameplay page. Notice this BMT2 logo switches places between the map pool and gameplay screens. That's a thing that the graphic designer did because they knew what the dimensions were and where the map pool started. The map pool always starts down here, so this logo can be bigger. The gameplay starts here, so this logo has to be smaller. The win screen, where the team's info shows up here, you'd get their profile picture and then a bunch of other info about the team over here. We have a drawings file, which nobody uses, don't bother. And the showcase screen, which you typically end up doing more custom stuff for the showcase, which I'm not going to actually elaborate on in this video. There are plenty of examples out there of map pool showcase videos. You can figure out generally what they do if you have any experience with OBS. So that's kind of a run through of the different folders that you have. And then of course there's a bracket.json. This is the file that tells Lazer what actually is the schedule, what is the information about the bracket, what are the scores from all the previous matches, what maps are in the map pool, what players are on each individual team, right? All of this information gets stored in here. The videos, the mods, and the flags is all the files that you actually need to put in. Every other bit of information that you enter into the client, like these user IDs, for example, or like these beatmap IDs, or like the information about schedules or the match scores, all get stored in the bracket.json file. So that file is extremely important to keep updated from week to week, to, if you do have multiple streamers for your tournament, for example, to keep publicly available with the latest version so that streamers don't have to recreate the whole bracket.json file, because that process is fairly lengthy, especially with initial setup. That is the most arduous part of using the Lazer tournament client. Okay, I think that's everything that I want to talk about from the local files with the tournament. All of this is your initial setup before you even look at putting anything into the Lazer tournament client. So all of that is just downloading Lazer, creating the shortcut, going into the properties of the shortcut and adding the space dash dash tournament to the end of the target, putting in any flags for your teams or mods or videos, and that's all we've talked about so far. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about in this video. Let's continue on now. These three menus right here: the team editor, the rounds editor, and the bracket editor. So there's a lot of information that goes into the Lazer tournament client. Let's take a look at a team that I've added here. This team is seed 16. Their name is They Lost. Acronym TL, flag THL. You'll notice that this flag acronym is the exact same text as the file that I have for this team's flag within the folder. That's necessary so that it shows up here. If I instead leave it as TH, they now have the flag of the country Thailand. So make sure it matches exactly. If you want to add players to a team, you can add as many as you want. I don't think there's actually a limit to them. All you do is put in their user ID and all this information automatically pops up. That part's actually not that bad. You can very easily delete players. You can also add new teams and add all countries. Reminder, the Lazer tournament client was originally created for the World Cup series, right? The OS World Cup, Mania World Cup, Taika World Cup, and Catch World Cup, right? So they just have a button to add all the countries. And then you can go back, and if you are running a country-based tournament, this is actually kind of helpful because you can just add all the countries preemptively and then adjust all their seeding information, player information after you've added all the countries in. For most of the rest of us, this is not super useful, but in country-based tournaments it is. There's a clear all button, which I don't recommend you hit because it would clear everything that you have entered. I would recommend if you hit that you just close the client immediately. Do not hit the save changes button. For the love of God, don't hit the save changes button if you do that. Just close the client immediately and then reload it. None of the changes will save immediately. You have to hit this button for any changes to save. So that's one good thing about Lazer. You always have to hit this button if you want to save any changes that you have made. One thing to know is that this sound that the client makes, right, that's kind of annoying when you're watching a broadcast. So one of the things that I tend to do is go into my volume mixer, right-click the icon down here, open volume mixer, and I actually turn my Lazer volume to 0. You don't have to do that, and I'm not going to do it for this video. I'm going to put this back to 50 right now, but for while you are live broadcasting, I think that is a good thing to do. You might have noticed I'm kind of avoiding a couple of things here. Last year's placement is useful, kind of, but the max you can adjust it to is 64 within the client. I'm certain you can adjust it, you probably can adjust it to be different within the bracket.json file. I don't know, but you probably can. Not quite as important for tournaments that have different teams every year. For example, the vast majority of community tournaments. So unless you're running a country-based tournament where the team name is always the same anyway, that feature is not super useful. Let's edit seeding results here. Notice how the screen is entirely blank. So you can add mods, for example, no mod. and you can manually add their seeding by adjusting it here. You can add beat map IDs. So this is where you would add individually for every team information about their qualifier seeding. Why is it set up like this? I have no idea. This is the most labor intensive possible setup they could have created for this, qualifier seeding entry thing, and this is the method they went with. I don't know why you have to enter the beat maps for qualifiers every single time you go to a new team. You have to enter this information separately for every single team. Why? Only God knows. So I don't do it. I do it in that's a lie. I do it in very rare cases. But yeah, somebody should make a script for that. It would be very useful. Because otherwise you have to manually enter that info for every single team. Pain. Keep moving on. This goes over everything about the team editor at this point. If you want to do this, God help you, have some music in about 10 hours or so for about a lot of teams. Here's the rounds editor. This is what you use to set up all of the different map pools, their best ofs, and the start time for the pools. I don't think the description really matters. I haven't seen anybody use it personally. And I'm not sure what it actually does. The entire rest of the client functions completely fine without it. So I've never seen anybody bother with it. Naming the rounds is pretty self-explanatory. Round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, grand finals, etc. If you have a larger tournament, you'll start earlier, of course. And then you enter in the map pool for each of those rounds. That means that for every round where you have a separate map pool, you are going to want to have a separate round created within the rounds editor. You can do so by clicking the Add New button off to the side here. You'll notice this panel is too big for one monitor. That's just a thing. If you're going to stream Lazer, you need more than one monitor. I did not mention this at the start. I will put a disclaimer about that in the description of the video. But yeah, if you're going to stream Lazer, or if you're going to stream OSU tournaments using the Lazer client as your overlay, you should have more than one monitor. I don't know how anyone would do this without more than one monitor, frankly speaking. And I speak as somebody who used to stream tournaments and referee using only one monitor. I have zero clue how you would do Lazer streaming with only one monitor. Zero clue. Start time here is in year, month, day format. Time 1500. That is UTC time. Always UTC time in the Lazer client, which is actually very useful. The vast majority of tournaments use UTC time for their own scheduling, which makes entering the start time in for these rounds relatively easy. What I tend to do as a quote-unquote default start time before I know is I tend to make it that Saturday starting at 0 UTC, because that's like a fairly reasonable start time, right? Usually you don't have Friday matches. Sometimes you do, but usually you don't. And the benefit to setting this default start time over here is, and let me just elaborate on how I make my rounds when I'm using the round editor. I actually create round of 16 quarterfinals, like for this tournament, for example. I created round of 16 through grand finals at the very start of the tournament when I was doing initial setup. And the reason that I did that is because it allows me to put a start time down for every single round. When I already have this start time entered here, and I go to the bracket editor to create new matches and look at their start times, for example, this one, for example, this start time right here, notice that this one, the Losers Grand Finals, already says starting April 9th at 0 UTC. Wouldn't you know, that corresponds directly with the start time for the Grand Finals round in this tournament, which I have already created down here. And I created it weeks and weeks ago, right? That's the reason why I create these rounds when I'm doing initial setup, is because it makes it so that I already have each of these particular matches starting at a time that largely makes sense and makes it so that any editing that I have to do is pretty simple on balance, right? Maybe changing a day or the hours, and that's it. If you don't do that, this is the big reason. If you don't do that, if you don't set up your rounds well beforehand, well in advance of the start time, and you create all of your matches in the bracket editor before you set up your rounds, you will get match times of whenever you created the match. Just whenever. Just whenever. So if you don't put a start time here, and you then if you don't put a start time and you create the matches and select the round, it'll just put whatever time it was when you created the match as the start time, which makes it basically something that you have to entirely retype over here. Whereas if you don't do that, if you do it the way that I've outlined, you just have the ability to just change a couple of different things, right? Just change to 16, for example, or just change this 2 to a 3, right? Very, very easy changes. So that's most of what you do here. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. Set the best of correctly, put in your map pool each week, right? And put the mods there. Obviously, as you can see, you can add custom mods, right? There's a halftime map in this pool. That's not standard OWC procedure. As long as the text here matches the flag that you have, you can add any number of mod categories. In fact, this pool has so many mod categories that the tiebreaker goes underneath the chat line. So yeah, as many as you want. Let's talk about the bracket editor now. The bracket editor is frankly kind of a pain to work with, but it works. So let's talk about it. This one needs to be, actually, this is a prime example. So let's say, like in this tournament, you have teams who were allowed to rename because the original team name that you had was for just 2 players. And after an auction style draft, these 2 players have now become 16 as they bought players through the auction to create their full team for the tournament for this round of 16. And now they say, well, you know what? We don't want to be known as Washingtoa anymore. We want to be known as Goose Gaming. Well, this round where they played as Washingtoa, now it doesn't show up in Lazer anymore because Washingtoa is not a team in this tournament, according to the Lazer client. It says Washingtoa. I don't know who that is. Why is this in the bracket? Get it out of here. And it deletes all the information about the match as well. This team should actually be Goose Gaming right here, who lost, I don't know what the score was, but clearly lost to Squid James, as Squid James is still in the winner's bracket here. So, yeah, if you have any if you have any changes like that made later on, and look at that now, it's just gone from there as well. If you have any changes like that made after the creation of your rounds, Lazer is going to just kind of poof them out of existence. So, beware of that. The other thing that you will want to do on the bracket editor is you're going to want to set up all of the rounds in advance. I have done my best to line these up as closely as possible going downward. The way that I do it, and the way that I recommend other people do it as well, is to just create as many rounds as you need and do it 1 round at a time. So I create round of 16 here. I made 8 matches, and then I made 4 more matches down here, right, for the first round of losers bracket. And I made 4 matches up here. And I just kind of roughly positioned them. And then from there, you can right-click on any round. Note that if you right-click over here, it says create new match. Now watch this. If I right-click right in between, guess what? It says create new match. It also says reset teams right here, which if you click this button, it just deletes all information on the bracket editor. It deletes everything except the matches and the positions themselves. God help you if you click this. Once again, God help you. The neat part about this is that if you click directly in between the 2 teams on this match, Lazer is coded such that it interprets that click as not clicking on the match. Even though you're clicking dead center of the match, it's not actually clicking on the match. Even more confusing is the fact that if you left click directly in between two teams, like I am doing here, it actually selects the match for those two teams. So that type of inconsistency has cost me my entire data on a bracket before. Learn from my example. Do not hit reset teams. Make sure you click on one of the teams for the match before you then click, for example, join with, and connect this match to this match such that the winner of this match goes on and auto-populates into this one. You can also click join with loser such that the loser of this match auto-populates into this one down here. Those join with loser lines, since they go all the way straight down, are what I use to line things up side to side. If I zoom in here, you can see there's just this one thick yellow line going all the way down, and it becomes its thickest right here. You can see there's barely any overlap at all there. It's just, barely any wiggle there. It's just all fully overlapped, which is exactly what I want. It means that all of these ones up here are pretty well aligned. From there, I just kind of eyeball these ones. You can see this one's actually a little bit too far forward compared to the others. I might just on the slide move that over a little bit while we're here. And from there, I try and line these up so that these ones are straight. These lines in between that connect them are straight so that they, seem like they're straight enough when you just look at them. It's not going to be perfect unless you are somebody who wants to write a script to hard code in the positions on the bracket.json file. I recommend doing it manually. The interface is not that bad despite its weird inconsistencies like we talked about before between right-clicking directly in the middle of a match and left-clicking. It's really not that bad. But yeah, that's how you generally get them positioned like this. You can see if I move this one, for example, forward a little bit, it just automatically looks awful. So let's reposition this so that it looks good again and hit save changes once more. The rest of the bracket editor is pretty self-explanatory, I think. You select the round right here, and you select whether it's loser's bracket or not right here. You touch that, it now says loser quarterfinals, and look, it says quarterfinals right there. Because it determines this match as the start of losers quarterfinals, and this one as the start of winners quarterfinals. If I uncheck it, it goes back to normal. Blue lines are for winners bracket matches, yellow lines are for losers bracket matches. And yeah, this is a pretty standard bracket layout as well. You can find bracket layouts much like this on Challenge. In fact, I copy the exact data from Challenge onto here in order to make sure that my bracket looks similar and all the connections are the same, more importantly. I believe that's all I need to talk about on the bracket editor. You can, of course, set the actual match times, but we have already talked about that in the rounds editor. Each individual match can have its time changed. So for example, I need to change the match time on some of these matches because they were rescheduled. So let's talk about how you do that. We've gone through all the editors already, but if I try and change the match time here, it just doesn't actually change it. Well, it does. It will change it in the editor. So for example, this team rescheduled the winners finals of this tournament to 15:30 UTC. Not this team, these teams, the 15:30. But if I go back out to the schedule here, notice, oh, it does actually change it on the schedule. Beautiful. Okay. So you can do that, and that's something that I've learned while doing this video. So you can reschedule these. Let me change my other schedule. This match is now scheduled to 15:05 UTC. Thank you, teams. Thank you, teams. So there we go. We've got, as long as you just click on the matches, see the time change from 16 to 15:05 since I clicked on a match. Okay. Now we can go back to the bracket area here. This is your actual bracket display. You can notice there's none of the editor information over here. So you can just position this squarely in the middle of the screen and give everybody a nice overview of your bracket. You'll notice I can't make any changes to this at all. If I drag stuff around, it doesn't do anything. If I right click, it doesn't do anything. Well, actually, if I right click, it does do stuff. If I right click, it'll still select the match, but if I right click again, it will unstart a started match. The same can be said of right clicking on the schedule tab. If I right click again here, it unstarts this match and unstarts this match. So if you want to start a match, what you need to do is click on it, select it, highlight it in white, and then hit it once, either side, bring it up to 0. The neat thing about the Lazer client is that you can control the scores of these matches from anywhere where you can see the match. So I can change the score of this match right on here. And then I can right click, of course, to bring the scores down again. The other neat thing about this is that if I have 0 to 6 right here and I right click on 0 again, it unstarts the match entirely. And then I can click it again to start it back up at 0 to 0. That feature is useful. For example, let's say that the host for your tournament has forgotten to add in the maps for the finals weekend. And you have these matches that are in your bracket editor as being finals, and they're already started on your schedule. And it's almost 15 UTC. You're about to stream High versus They Lost. And you notice on your map pool screen, oh, shoot, there's no maps. What do I do? Well, you go into your rounds editor, you put in all the maps and all the mods, of course, and you can get this information hopefully from your tournament's main sheet, right? Hopefully, even though your host forgot to put the information in, they still remembered to release the map pool for the teams, and it's on the main sheet where it's publicly accessible. If it's not, you should probably, like, I don't know, maybe it's F2 pool or something, in which case, why are you using Lazer? From there, what you would do is put these in, and then you would have to unstart and restart the match. When a match is started, all information about the round is locked in. So in order to make sure that this newly added map pool is visible for this match, you would have to unstart and restart the match. And I'll give a great example of this right now. Let's say, I'll just give them some points, because why not? All right. Now, let's say I go into the rounds editor and I say, you know what? I'm just going to mess around a little bit here. I'm going to delete some maps. I'm going to delete all of them. I'll delete the DT pool and onwards. Right? And I hit save changes. But if I go back to the map pool screen right here, it's still got all this information. Why? Because the match has already started. So it's still operating off of previously cached data, off of data that has been locked in for that round. But now, if I go back out to here, and I can even do it from the gameplay tab, right? I can at least remove the scores from the gameplay tab. It's still started for the match, right? And I've still got all the information here. But if I go back out to the schedule tab and I unstart this now, let's go back over to here. Oh, did I break it? I think I broke it. I think I may have broken Lazer. That happens sometimes. Yeah, that's a thing. I think I may have broken Lazer. I think I may have given Lazer too rough of a time there. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, there we go. All right, so there is. Let's unstart all of these matches. Let's click on High again, and let's go back to the map pool scene. And there you go. There you go. Now that it's restarted again, there's no DT in this pool. There's no free mod in this pool. There's no tiebreaker in this pool. I'm just gonna have to add those back in. I guess I'll pull up the main sheet or something. I don't know. Let me just grab those real quick. But yeah, that's what happens when you do that. So if you do need to add them back in, and again, let's just do that real quick so that we can all see exactly how you do this. Go on to my main sheet. I'll grab my DT maps. I'll grab my free mod picks also. And if you just have 0 as the beat map ID, you can copy paste right on top of it. It automatically gets rid of the 0. That's kind of nice. Okay, and there we go. I'm gonna hit save changes again, and I'm gonna hit save changes about 20 times to make sure that it saves the changes. Doesn't always do that. Make sure you hit it a few times. Go back out to here, restart the match, take a look at the map pool, back to its former glory. So with all of that said, let's keep going with some of the other stuff. I think I've explained enough about what the schedule tab looks like and the bracket. The team intro tab has a soft limit of, I guess, however many players Hunzin would be. 5, 10, 11, 12. Soft limit of 12 players on Lazer. You can, alternatively, go to the seeding tab and look at, I would say, probably 17 or 18 players max on the seeding tab. But you're kind of pushing it there. These are 16-player teams, so yeah, I thought Lazer would be smarter. That's all I have to say. Map pool tab, of course, looks like this. You have the gameplay tab here. This is a green screen that you can set up in OBS. If you just do in OBS, I will show you how to do this right here. If you go to my display capture here and I add a filter and I add a chroma key, whatever, and that chroma key is green. Hey, look, now you don't see the green screen anymore. Now it's just blank. And you can overlay all of the player clients there. You would still window capture Lazer and put it on top of the player clients so that, for example, when you switch back over to the map pool screen, that appears on top of your player clients. As you can see, my chroma key is a little bit strong. The easy mod icon is blacked out. The hidden mod icon is also a little blacked out. That is one strong chroma key. And the green in the logo up here at the top is also a little blacked out, right? So, and the logo for Team High is blacked out. So be careful what you do with your chroma key. Be careful adjusting it. I'm going to go ahead and remove mine now from OBS. So that I can see everything again. Well, so that you can see everything again. I can still see everything. The map pool screen is the map pool and the gameplay screen are the two that as a streamer you are going to spend the most time on. And I think I think they warrant a little bit of discussion just for that. You can adjust the chroma width for anything from stable 2v2, where you just have little itty-bitty player windows right next to each other on the stable 2v2 tournament client. If you're familiar with how that looks, you will understand what I'm saying right now. If you're not familiar with how that looks, change your tournament client to stable and load up 2v2. You will be sorely disappointed. Or you can just go it all the way to the side of the screen, like this. I would usually recommend chroma to the side of the screen. You can also change it to 3 players per team instead of 4. For 1v1s, oh lord. Okay, well, you know what, close enough, I guess. I don't know. Oh lord. These are very finicky about sizes here. So yeah, make sure that you don't accidentally adjust your sizes or you may have a headache like I am having right now. Okay, there we go. With this players per team, the slide is either 3 or 4. That is because if you have 2 players per team and you are running the cutting edge tournament client, as you should, they'll take up the whole screen. If you're running 1 player per team, they will also take up the whole screen. And if you're running 4 players per team, they'll take up the whole screen. So this is really just a slide for, are you using 3v3? No, keep it at 4. And that's all I have to say about that. The rest of the gameplay is pretty self-explanatory. Toggle chat removes the chat. Toggle warm-up either removes the stars or puts them back. This is, of course, the score. If I hit toggle warm-up, the scores go away. If I hit it again, they come back. You'll notice, when I switch over to the map pool screen here, the scores go away. I have no idea why that is. I'm really not sure. But if I hit save changes a few times, close the Lazer client, and then reopen it, my scores will come back, and they will be here. Now, the scores themselves didn't actually save for whatever reason, but you'll notice the scores actually still stay here while I am on the map pool screen. So one thing that I try to get in the habit of is between matches as a streamer, I will select the next match, go to the gameplay screen, toggle the warm-up, save changes, close the client, reopen the client, and then verify that I can see the score here. Because for new viewers who are just tuning into a stream, for example, seeing just the map pool screen with no score is really weird. Okay. The win screen will... another thing with the map pool screen and gameplay screen. This may be self-explanatory to some, but not so much to others. Red band, blue band. These are things that you select and then just left click. If you want to get rid of something that you have already done, you can right click. If you want to get rid of a bunch of things that you have already done, everything on the screen, there is a reset button for that. They flash whenever you click them. So if you click a bunch of them, they'll all flash. The bands alternate between, and as you can see, after you select a map, it will just automatically take you to the gameplay screen. The bands automatically alternate between blue band and red band, and then they go straight to red pick. There is not an option in here to make it stick with 2 bands instead of 1. Don't know why that is. It would be a nice quality of life feature, though. So I have to manually select red band and blue band a second time, and then it will give first pick automatically to the team who last banned. You can see blue banned first, red is picking first. So that's one thing to consider, is if your rules for the tournament, if your role rules are different from that, from what Lazer considers quote-unquote default, then you're going to have to do another bit of manually selecting here. And again, once I've selected Nomad 6, the CS9 map in this pool, as the first pick for blue team, in this case, wait a second here, it'll switch me over to the gameplay client. The other neat thing is that with the Lazer client, when the players stop playing and the scores are done, and you hit, hopefully, panic and sync music, it'll switch you back to the map pool screen after a little bit. Many tournaments use a custom transition in OBS to eliminate the bit of green screen that you tend to see when that transition happens. The very easy way to do that is to have 2 identical scenes and just click between them when that transition happens. Pretty simple way to get around it. Okay, I'm going to hit the reset button because I don't want any actual maps being selected for this team when we do get them playing tomorrow. On the gameplay screen, I think we've already talked about everything here, so I'm going to go on to the win screen. When a team wins, this is another scene that the client will automatically transition to. As you saw earlier in here, we had 2 different videos for blue and red. Blue comes first alphabetically, so this is the default one that it uses. But if red team wins, this team would use the red team win video. And this, again, is something that is automatically transitioned to when the match is over, when the score, aka when the score for one team hits the designated maximum for that best of. Nothing else really to talk about at this point. We have mostly gone over everything. And I believe that's actually the end of a relatively impromptu Lazer tournament guide. I guess some parting words would be that this is a relatively setup intensive client that afterwards is relatively easy to use for streamers who already have it set up, and relatively easy to fill in weekly data for. So as long as you are willing to put in the initial effort on setup for this client, you will have a much better looking overall stream. I think that Lazer, as of right now, is more accessible than things like Gosu Memory, which are comparable alternatives to Lazer. And that accessibility is something that gives it a little bit of a leg up over things like Gosu Memory. It is, of course, the official quote-unquote tournament client. This is the one used in all World Cups and such. So if you are a country-based tournament, it makes a lot of sense to use something like Lazer, as it was literally made for country-based tournaments in the World Cup style. If you were doing other stuff with Lazer, there are some features that you might not find super necessary, and that's fine. But I think overall it really does bring up, it's an initial setup investment that very much brings up the overall quality of the stream that you have as a tournament. So I think for hosts and streamers who are willing to put in the effort on that initial setup, and if you have a graphic designer who is willing to design stuff like this, I mean, this is a lot more effort, right, from both a graphic design and a hosting and streaming perspective than just doing cutting edges, because you have to do cutting edge plus all of this. You don't get to avoid cutting edge. You have to use the regular tournament client, once again, to even be able to make use of Lazer Tournament Client. That's what these IPC text files are for, to connect you to your normal tournament client. So this is all additive effort on top of what you would already normally do. But if you are willing to put in that additive effort, it is an investment that makes the overall quality of your tournament and the overall production value of your tournament increase significantly. So I hope that people who want to use the Lazer client but are put off by not being able to really understand how to use it are helped out by this video. I realize this is very long, so I will try and timestamp this and make sure that it is mostly easily viewable. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Please leave a like for the video, and I will see you for the next time that I do some kind of streaming or otherwise OSU related tournament video. See you next time.